24.
Listen,
So are you coming to RSA tomorrow?
Thursday.
I mean, Thursday. Yeah.
I did that earlier. Holidays gonna find out everybody's calendar. I mean, it's just like it's just
It
hell,
does.
you know.
Almost a month of December, people ought to just,
Yeah,
home wants to stop.
Y'all good down there, folks?
Good.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
I'd like to call the Board of Supervisors meeting to order. As always, let's start with the Pledge of Allegiance and a moment of silence. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, thank you. We do have a quorum. We do need to adopt an agenda. Mr. Weekly has distributed to us the supplemental appropriation from the school last night for ESSER funds. I'd like to add that to as 4A under new business, and it's just an appropriation. Anybody else have anything else to add to this agenda?
That's under old business.
No, I want to put it as 4A under new
I'm
business.
And that would be supplemental appropriation number 9, Mr.
Yes,
Chairman.
sir.
I put it in the wrong spot.
Thank you. Anybody else have anything?
Mr. Chairman, I move to adopt the agenda as amended.
Second.
Motion's made and seconded. Further discussion? Hearing none. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. As always, let's start with public comment. Public comment. Any public comment? Livingston, a lot of people on there. Well, that's hard on public comment. All right, moving on. We do have a consent agenda. We have minutes from 11/22/22, 12/02/22, and 12/07/22, and then we have the supplemental appropriation number 7, which is the school resource officer. What would y'all like to do? Questions, comments, thoughts?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, I move that we approve the consent agenda as presented.
Second.
Motion's made and seconded. Any further discussion? Hearing none. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. All right. Constitutional officers, county departments, committees, and organizations. Valerie, you're first.
Good afternoon. I'm Valerie Ward, Director of Social Services. I'm happy to report that probably for the first time in my 11 years here, I am completely fully staffed. I'm knocking on some wood over here. It's really important, I think, to note that I am fully staffed because, again, we do have some citizens that are really struggling these days. We've seen a significant uptick in domestic violence situations, coordinating with law enforcement and SAFE and a number of other community agencies to support families struggling with that. We also have had some recent cases involving meth usage. So we're really trying to respond appropriately and support families in getting appropriate services. CSA is still doing incredibly well as we look at the year-end review. For all the kind of tough things we're working on, we're extremely thankful for the community response to our Thanksgiving and Christmas adoption program. Tons of folks have adopted eligible families for the holidays. And I'll just give a shout out that the mobile food pantry at Riva Fire Department is tomorrow from 10 to 11:30. So anybody can just drive through and get a ton of supplemental groceries to add to their families' cupboards. So for however difficult some of the situations families are facing, it's just great to see our community reach out to meet needs. Thank you.
Questions for Valerie? Thank you. Ms. Warren.
Good evening. The finance team has been extremely busy. Just a couple updates. On our Tyler Munis implementation, we're now in what I call the control point phase, where we're continuing with our user acceptance testing. as well as reviewing the last bit of historical data that we're loading into the system with a still go live date of January 1. We have completed the FY22 audit. That MD&A, the management discussion and analysis document, I have finalized the draft and sent that over to the auditors this afternoon. So we're still on track to file the audit report by December 15th, and it will be presented to the board in January. The FY21 CAP or cost allocation plan audit was also completed and filed by the due date of December 15th. That is the CAP is the one that calculates the agency-wide indirect cost to departments and funds that receive services from other departments. So that one's always a year behind, and that one has also been filed in a timely manner by the 15th. And we're also gearing up for FY24 budget prep, and we'll talk about that more in a little bit with the budget calendar. And those are the big highlights from finance right now.
Questions from Mr. Warren? Thank you, ma'am. Jerry, how's Parks and Rec other than what we're going to discuss here shortly?
Oh, I got, I Warner Sports just starting up.
God.
I'm blasting you again.
Yeah,
I don't even know why I need this.
Well, you do.
Warner Sports are just starting up, and we had a S'mores of Santa event this past Saturday, which was a huge success with over 200 people in attendance for that.
Great.
Our light show will be up nightly until New Year's. Just drive through the park and turn on the radio to 88.7. It turned out really good.
Thank you. Questions for Jerry? All right. Sheriff?
Good afternoon. First of all, I just want to thank the board for considering, hopefully we approve our SRO position coming up. I know you skipped over. I know you.
No, we did.
You're going to bring it back up.
No, we already did. We approved.
Oh, I must be talking about this.
Quit distracting people.
He'll distract you.
All right. We're continuing to have a challenge in the used to be called Leathers Lane area. Now it's called Syria Mountain Estates. So that's still ongoing. If you wish to discuss it, give me a call about that. As years ago, last year, we were talking about heroin coming into the county now. Fentanyl pills and cocaine coming back. Since we've, thank you for letting us join back the task force. I mean, they're buying pills anywhere from 2,000 to 6,000 pills a pop. $30 for a lot of money. And it's still coming from Northern Virginia and coming into Memphis. So we're still seeing it coming our way. It's a problem. We're trying to cope with it, but still it's an ongoing problem. And also, last thing, thank you for your support on manpower issues. We're still having some issues, but the issues are getting smaller and smaller every day. I hope by July we'll be up full force. Question?
Y'all are working with the task. I've heard the task force for years. Remember when you went off and then now back on?
Yeah.
You're working with them on basically a daily basis.
Yes.
And you have got deputies
Yes.
assigned to work with
That's
them.
correct. That's correct. Every day.
Absolutely great.
Yes, indeed.
So Sheriff, I got
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
one question. So with the fentanyl and stuff coming in, are they using Madison for a distribution center, or if we got users in Madison?
It's a combination of both.
Yeah.
People and users. Coming out on Virginia, Manassas. We just recently got involved in a case where now our buyers are going back to Manassas, and they work. He's working, I think, 6 to 7 unsolved murders right now that we traced back from Madison back up there. They're working thanks to us.
I'll say that.
Well, then that means we need to get our RCSB in here as soon as possible, don't we?
Yes.
The Rappahannock Community Services Board.
We signed the papers and are going to closing tomorrow on that. Isn't that right, Sean Gregg? There you go.
So, Dustin, tell them what
So that would give
intake.
the county a presence here, like the community service board have a presence here, where your deputies, basically there would be a small version of the C center here. Your deputies wouldn't have to run all the way to Culpeper.
Good.
It's not a 24-hour thing, but it would be another avenue of maybe helping out in that area.
Any help we can get would be greatly appreciated, because we're still going to have, like I said, prior to mental health transports, gay lights, Lebanon, Southwest. And very few go to Western State, and very few go to Central State. We're doing
I-
8 hours that way.
I know they're working on that. That was discussed today about the
Good.
43 hours that you have to sit with them and stuff.
Yeah, yeah.
They're working on trying to develop other
Hopefully our
areas of people that
legislation,
can sit with them.
your support can change that back to 8 hours, not the 24-hour period.
Yeah.
Where's Central State?
Petersburg.
All right, thank you.
We ride down one day.
No, I'm fine with that. Oh, I ain't
Take me
leaving.
down there.
Oh, no, I
Tour the
bet.
facility. Yeah.
Good. Thank you.
Thank you.
Or take the microphone back there for them. We don't have to do this. Brian, why don't you? Yeah, go ahead.
You've already come.
Yeah, there you go. That's what it is. Go ahead, Brian.
Anyway, we wrapped up personal property and real estate second half billing. Had quite a few individuals coming in on the assessments. We kind of knew that. Most of them were accepting of the adjustment in the rate. Still had quite a few arguments and discussions with people, but all in all, I think most people understood and they just wanted an explanation and an ear to bounce it off of. So wrapped all that up, getting ready for the new year, wrapping up real estate adjustments and changes. We did have a increase in our billing for new construction. We send out the assessors for new construction, so that we'll see that bill increase quite a bit. It just fuel and everything else attributing to that. But we've seen that bill go up. Other than that,
Questions from Brian? You're gonna stick around till good. Mr. Gordon.
Yes, sir. Okay. Radio system is moving right along. Hoover Ridge is complete with the exception of the generator. Excuse me. The generator turn up, which is going to happen next Thursday, the 22nd at 10 o'clock. All the facility does have power to it now. I went out and tested HVAC by accident, and that does work. So everything is up and running in there. Still waiting on to install the equipment. Should be happening sometime around first of the year. Beautiful Run is complete. Blakey's Ridge is complete. Hughes River is still on hold as of right now. Greene County has completed their 5th site land acquisition as of today. So that's going to be a big help for us. It's going to give us coverage in the Middle River area. So that's going to take care of a lot of stuff, keep us from having to build something in that side of the county. As of a week ago, I am now full staff for the first time in about 22 months. It's going to be short-lived. I'm losing another one, National Park Service, end of the month, first part of the year. So that as soon as he gets done with his background check, he's going to be gone. And beyond that, key stats for last month, we had 3,747 calls come into the center, including 911, and 940 calls for service.
Questions from Brian? Thank you, Brian. Noah?
Hi, good evening. EMS is staying busy, 153 for November, average response time 9 minutes. Continuing to help our surrounding counties. Greene had 10 mutual aid requests. We were able to assist with 2, and Orange 1, and we were able to assist with that one. We're fully staffed, continuing to help out with standby events. We did a JV football game and assisted Woodbury Forest with 2 events. The community CPR event, we had 5 people. Big thanks to the Madison County Volunteer Fire Department for allowing us to use the space. That was two CPR courses in one day, morning session, afternoon session. We're going to continue to try and promote that. Even though 5 people attended, that's 5 people that now know how to do it. So we're excited. A couple big projects that I've been working on for, I'd say, over a year. We have a workplace safety program, and then our continuity of operations plan, which is basically a playbook of if there's an emergency within the department, if there's changes in staff, somebody can come in and take off and be able to keep the mission going. Also, on the final stages of our 5-year strategic plan, I hope to have that completed by the end of the year. I'll be sharing that with Administrator Weekly for his input, and then we'll get it to y'all. And then the last one, I know we asked for money. I'm not asking for money right now. This is more of a heads up.
Got a couple months.
The EMS conference I attended a couple weeks ago in Norfolk, the big topic down there, and Gavin actually alerted me to this before that, the turnaround time on new ambulance deliveries is 2 to 3 years from the place of order. And I verified that through different resources. So on the screen here is our basically fleet replacement plan, recommended lifespan, et cetera. Medic 10 and Medic 20 are our two oldest units, and we've begun the planning process for design after consultation with Administrator Weekly. So I'm going to include this in the FY24 capital requests. The 680,000 is a best guess 3 to 4 years from now, 2 to 3, et cetera. I don't know what that cost is going to be, but it's going to be close to that, if not more, due to
All right,
multiple different
the way
reasons.
I'm reading that, you're saying that we're going to buy ambulances for $340K a piece.
Yes, sir.
I am
Minimum.
Yeah, it's better than what it could mean.
Yeah. And there
all
are
right.
options. Like
Yeah.
2 years ago, you might remember there was like a lease to own that we were talking. So there's areas that we can explore. I just wanted to give this to y'all earlier than later. And yeah, that's pretty much everything.
Well, things to look forward to. That's a bummer.
And the lifespan is agency or industry, I should say, standards. Your city departments that are stop and go versus, thankfully for us, 29. So it's not intercity driving. But we want to make sure the fleet's up to date, safe, et cetera, for our people and patients.
Very good.
Happy to answer any
Questions
questions.
for Noah? It'll be part of the budget.
Yeah.
Whole discussion. I mean, that's all it is. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. Gavin?
Good evening, everyone. Very short report. Still working on the shelter upgrade grant exploration. I've met with DSS last week, excuse me. And we've kind of figured out space needs and what have you. So I have a follow-up meeting with Drew and Stacy at Public Schools next week. And we'll get that information to them so they can finalize a quote from Cummins to give us a ballpark idea of what that generator would cost and to see if it's something that we want to pursue, given the fact that it's a 66% grant that VDEM would be covering, 34% would be county responsibility. So we'll look at it and see if that's something that we want to pursue in calling that our primary shelter area. And we also had some really good talk on some other things that we can do in terms of sheltering during our meeting, and I'm looking forward to exploring those as we move forward. And I'll have some budget areas on that in the upcoming cycle. The Stop the Bleed program, very excited about that. As I've mentioned before, we use the LAMPG grant money for that this year. Everything has been ordered. We've already received the cabinets. I'm not sure if they've been installed yet or not. I'll get an update on that next week as well. We're still waiting for the actual Stop the Bleed kits to come in. There's a very big shortage on those materials due to the Ukraine war and some other issues that are internationally taking place right now. Once those are in or very close to coming in, we're going to start training. We just happened to hire somebody, Bruce Stark, who is a Stop the Bleed trainer. So we're going to be able to do that organically. Troy Estes, Captain Estes at the Sheriff's Department, has expressed that he has a couple newer deputies that might want to tack into that too, and we definitely want to make that available to them. And he and I actually are going to be meeting, I believe, on the 21st, somewhere right around there. We're going to be meeting and looking at the county buildings and the courthouses as well to see if we can set up that same thing that we're doing in the public schools
probably where our AED boxes are, to have a cabinet right next to them with multi stop the bleed kits as well, and to do the same training for our public staff on that. And that would lead to maybe tying into something with EMS down the road, where we could maybe do a citizen stop the bleed program as well, look for grant money there where we can get people outfitted and go from there. So it's another way to reach out into the community. Noah did a great job with the AED program, and this definitely ties in very well with that. And that's all I have. If you have any questions.
Questions for Gavin? I do. I've got to go back to the CPR class. Even though you had 5, I mean, that's a real win. And hopefully people will start gravitating towards those, because, I mean, hell, I need to. That's a good one. Like, that's real good outreach. Hand your mic back to Mr. Work, would you? Mr. Work, how's the Planning Commission?
There's really no major initiative before the Planning Commission at this point. Several of us are working with several of you and Ligon and Jennifer Little on the comprehensive plan. And I look forward to that heating up in the new year.
Questions, Mr. Work? All right, Livingston. You got your own. Yeah.
I've got my own mic.
Good.
Well, for the first time in 3 years, the IT staff is fully staffed. Please welcome Alan Berry to the team. He is now officially, after a long interview process with some very good candidates, he still managed to squeak them out at the end. So he's one of us. Tyler upgrade happened over the last several days, last Monday through. Look at me. I'm supposed to know that, but I'm too close to the mic. So that's all good. That went uneventful. We're working on with the Avinity folks to get the API, which is basically a link between Avinity and Tyler, up and running. And that is now in the Avinity folks' hands. Our backup crisis, we had a couple weeks. It looks like the adjustments we made for that, that's been working good. We are not running out of space anymore on that, and everything's getting backed up. I'm working on these email addresses things right now. It's taking a little bit of time. If you look in your all users or your global list drop down, they're just not accurate and they don't all work. So it's time to get that done. And we will be moving sometime in January probably to the War Memorial Building. I think we're getting it ready over there. And I mean, those are the highlights. There's really not a lot other than just the daily fires going on.
Questions for Livingston or Alan? Congratulations. Good. All right. All right. I think we've covered everybody. Is Clarissa online or anybody else? All right. Does he have something to say or report from REC?
Mr. Henry, do you have anything to say at this time? He's muted.
At this time.
Well, there you go. Well, I'm glad to have you. We do have some public hearings. Mr. Weekly, the open space agreement.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. You may recall recently the Commissioner of Revenue brought forth a discussion of whether or not the land use of open space was something the board wanted to consider either keeping in or possibly amending. In this case, it's proposed amended to omit that from Chapter 24, Article 2 of your code or your ordinances. So that led to the public hearing that you directed staff to advertise. We have done that. Mr. Daniel is here tonight. If you have any questions, this certainly is your public hearing, your feedback. We have prepared an ordinance in case you want to consider approval. I did circulate a letter to the board at the request of PEC. That's the only correspondence I had about the matter. So you should have received that by now. So I have nothing further to add, unless you have any questions for me, or again, our Commissioner of Revenue is here tonight as well.
Mr. Daniels, anything to add? I think there's been some confusion just based on this land use being so important in Madison. This will have zero effect on active agriculture and land use, correct?
That is correct.
What was the other one, Carter?
Oh, yeah. So, Brian, so does this affect in any way? I don't think it does. But I'm gonna hold that right there. Does this affect conservation easements that are in place now or in the future? You could still go tomorrow and go through VOF or PC or whatever and still get a conservation easement. Has no effect on conservation easements.
Correct. That right's held through the state code. You find an easement holder and get that done. You're awarded the land use values. This is just, and like I said, we've never had anybody participate in this previously. Did have several inquire. That's why we brought forth the proposed agreement. However, we've now just been decided to advertise to repeal that portion, the open space.
It's based on the 2022-6 ordinance that has been amended and prepared. All it is doing is taking out of section 24-27 the words "and open space." It basically gets Madison County out of doing open space easements for set time periods.
That's correct.
There you go. So everything's very clear on this. Anything else to add? Mr. Gregg, anything else to add?
Just in the interest of full disclosure forward, I am aware that the Piedmont Environmental Council representative sent a letter, it could be in the packet, asking that the ordinance be made.
Yes, sir.
Right. Yes, sir. And Mr. Chairman, we put the, as you just stated, you could see it on the screen what is being proposed tonight.
Absolutely. Anybody else have anything to add on this?
And then, Mr. Chairman, just to reiterate what I said previously, I think that this needs to be amended. I don't think that there's any benefit to the county with retaining the open space use designation.
I got one more thing, Mr. Jeremy. So I've been getting quite a bit of response on this, for this afternoon. And I tried to explain, and I used the term tax deferral, which I think I've talked to you before. When you put something in land use, you are deferring the taxes for whatever period of time. Okay, so I just want to make sure that you agree that when I use the term tax deferral, that is the proper way to try to explain this, right?
That's exactly the way it should be explained.
Okay, so I will try with these folks again.
If it is deferred long enough, and in the nature of rollback taxes, which is what we're talking about, but there is a cap on the number of years that a property can be deferred. In other words, rollback taxes, I think the code calls for 7 years. I could be mistaken, it was 5 years. So you could only, if you were in this program, you were entitled to 5 years. So if you had it in an open space easement for 10 years, you only get 5 years of rollback. So it is a reduction of those taxes to that extent.
You roll back 5 years.
Correct.
Okay. Well, I'll try to explain to these constituents.
When you're at the Ellen store, do you sit on the bench with them, or do you stand in front of the bench and present?
Oh, I usually stand in front.
There you go. There you go. Anybody else have any comments on this before we open it up to the public? All right. The public hearing is open on amending this ordinance. Any public comment? Any public comment? There you go. Please identify yourself, sir.
My name is Mike Fisher
There you
from
go.
Juneau, Virginia. I think the explanation that we just had is the one we should have had before we had the public hearing, because I got several phone calls, and I guess the general public that I talked to thought this was just like land use. Today I learned that that's not. So see why you're gonna change it, but that might have been something that you might have put in the paper also. An explanation of what this exactly was. Thank you.
Thank you, Mike Fisher. All right, other public comment on this? Livingston? All right, the public hearing is closed. We do have an amended ordinance 2022-6. What would y'all like to do?
Mr. Chairman, I move that we approve ordinance number 2022-6.
Second?
Motion's made and seconded. Further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. All right, old business, supplemental appropriate. Yes, sir, excuse me. Absolutely. Do we have to restate the motion or not? All right,
Mr. Chairman, I move that we approve ordinance number 2022-6.
Second?
motion's made and seconded for the second time. Further discussion? Hearing none. Mr. Hoffman?
Aye.
Mr. Dawson?
Aye.
Mr. Jewett?
Aye.
Mr. Yao?
Aye.
And the chair votes aye. Ordinance 2022-6 is passed that way. All right. Old business, supplemental appropriation number 8, the rescue squad purchase. Ms. Warren.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This supplemental appropriation, the purpose is related to the closing costs for the EMS building. After reviewing the HUD 1 statement for the closing that is this week, we have $2,317 in settlement costs to account for in Fund 30. Right now, Fund 30, which is the capital asset account, has the $500,000, but not the $2,317. So we want to have the full acquisition cost of the purchase of EMS building in Fund 30. So we're proposing to move $2,317 out of 2 expenditure line items in Fund 10 over to Fund 30 to capture the full cost. From the one is from legal services in Fund 10 for the title settlement fees, and one is pest termite inspection from Fund 10 to the Fund 30, and that $2,317 will be encompassing all of the closing costs that we have on the building.
Yes, ma'am. Any other comments on this? Jonathan, got anything?
No, sir. Ms. Warren stated it, everything. So thank you.
Questions for Ms. Warren? Comments? What do y'all want to do?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, I move that we approve supplemental appropriation number 8 for the purpose of the closing costs for the EMS building.
Second.
Motion's made and seconded. Further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. All right, new business, 4A. We have a supplemental appropriation, was it number 9? This was passed on from the school board last night. $750,000, all from ESSER funds. Mr. Weekly, you like to talk about it, or Ms. Warren, or anybody? Pretty self-explanatory.
Yeah, these are ESSER funds, and I'm not sure if they elaborated more in the school board meeting last night, but if you look at the supplemental breakdown, they categorize where they plan to utilize that funding. So there's a breakdown of that $750,000. So again, these are funds that they received. They're not local funds, but you are the purse string, so you have to supplemental so those monies can go into those categories.
Excellent. Questions on this? Thoughts? What would y'all like to do?
Mr. Chairman, I move to approve supplemental appropriation number 9.
I'll second.
Motion's made and seconded. Further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign.
Mr. Chairman, if I may, so since this was a late item, as we don't have this normal, but we will go back to amend the packet online so the general public can see the detail. But again, these were funds that ESSER funding from the state to the school system, so no local dollars, but you'll have that online soon.
Very good. Thank you, Mr. Weekly.
Yes, sir.
All right. General reassessment cycle approval. Mr. Daniels, come on back up.
Go up a little bit. There you go.
I just wanted to bring it to your attention that the code requires a majority vote of the board of supervisors with a population less than 50,000, that you may opt to have a 5 or 6 year reassessment cycle. So we're running up on 4 years. January 1 will be 4 years since our last reassessment. So just wanted to bring that to your attention. I think the intent has been to have probably a 6 year reassessment. However, does need to be voted on.
So, all right, and it would be to extend the cycle till January 1st of 2025.
Correct. That would be the 6 year cycle.
Yes, sir. Questions from Mr. Daniels? Thoughts? Other comments? Please.
So, Brian, what have we done in the past? We've been on a 4-year cycle.
6 years.
So we've always been on a 6-year cycle.
I believe between
it was 5.
We did 20
between 08 and 13 was a 5 year. 13 to 19, 6 year.
Yeah.
I'm not sure when it was before 08. I'd have to look back.
Okay, yeah, always.
But
It's not a very good term to use.
Sometimes
historically,
we've
used.
And I just tell you, we'd be really hard pressed to try to get it done in 5 years. But I've talked to Jonathan about going ahead and scheduling and getting RFP out for a 6 year cycle.
Yeah.
Right now, our sales ratios right around 80. Our estimated sales ratio is right around 80, I think 5%. And that's where the state looks at our current sales versus our assessments. And where we do lose out or miss some revenue would be at the public service, our assessments of our public services. And I estimate that to be around 60,000 that we're theoretically missing out on. Again, a reassessment score going to probably be pushing $300,000 to $400,000. So I mean, if you're looking at a cost,
that was my next question. Did we put money away in the previous? I know we have it on previous reassessments, but didn't we have money set aside in the current fiscal year's budget to start funding the reassessment for the upcoming?
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman, and I believe Finance Chair with me this morning. The audit actually reflects it's about $400,000 that you currently have. You put buckets of money away, if you will, each year, so you have currently $400K for that purpose.
Yeah, I personally like the idea of going to 6 years because assessments are costly. They're costly to the county and it's costly to the citizens too.
Absolutely.
So that's my opinion.
All right. Other comments on this? What would the board like to do?
Mr. Chairman, I move to extend the general reassessment cycle to January 1st, 2025, which would reflect the 6-year interval.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Further discussion? Hearing none. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Thank you, Mr. Daniels. FY24 budget calendar. Mr. Weekly.
Yes, sir. So we talked about this, I believe, at the last meeting in November. So we put forth a draft budget calendar, and actually credit to Ms. Warren. We've had some discussion around it. So, Alan, if you can go to the attachment. So based on the feedback you had given us, we had asked, for the Thursdays work for you. That's what we have historically set up for budget workshops. You've informed us you wish for that to be from 3 p.m. to 6 p.m. So we've shown that. Plus, we show you when do we start engaging departments? When do we start engaging outside agencies? When do we plan on having those items back? Having board work sessions and so forth, including the advertisement and obviously leading up to the adoption of the budget. So the calendar you have before you shows that detail. If you look at the budget calendar as when we start transmitting information, the first action would be, assuming you would take action tonight to approve this. That's our first date on the calendar, December 13th. and then finance and county administration office would distribute budget information either to departments or outside agencies. That information would be due back to finance by January the 13th, so they do have full 30 days to complete that. And then the finance team and myself will meet with departments and possibly some outside agencies between the dates of January 17th to the 25th. I like to follow suit like we did last year. I thought there was value in these, we can call them pre-workshop, if you will. That's not where they come before the board, but that's Ms. Warren and I opportunity to really understand their budget and maybe do some fine tuning before the version that you will consider at your workshop. And then after the 25th, you move right into your first workshop starting February the 2nd. Again, all your workshops will be on Thursdays from 3 to 6, held here at the board auditorium. So that'll move you from February the 2nd all the way through if you need that last budget workshop for March 16th. I do want to point out we did allow for 2 potential workshops for the school board. We realized that they forecasted to adopt the budget by March 13th. So that last workshop on the 16th could capture anything and maybe beyond school board related, but we realized that that's the biggest component of your budget. So it probably has a lot of the discussion time around your budget schedule. And then from there, you would move to an advertisement of March 23rd, hold a public hearing for consideration of the budget on April the 4th. That is a Tuesday, the first Tuesday of the month of April. And then the April the 11th date would be your consideration for adopting the budget, which you also set your tax rates at that time. I have talked in years past with Ms. Murray if we can go to that last meeting that the board has in April, but it's beneficial if you consider adopting earlier, so that gives her time to process and get the mailing out. As you know, thankfully you all extended the deadline. We had an issue with the mailing company then, so giving extra time is always a good approach I would recommend for the Treasurer's Department. So that is your budget calendar. I'm happy to answer any questions. Ms. Warren is here as well. Ms. Warren, is there anything you'd like to add? Thank you.
Does anybody have any comments other than just general unbridled enthusiasm about this great calendar coming up?
I've got 2, I think.
Yeah.
Okay, so Ms. Warren and Mr. Weekly, when you all send out the budget request instructions to departments and outside agencies, would you try to impress upon them to follow the instructions and submit in accordance with your template? I mean, so I have sat through these things for like 3 years before I got on the board and 2 years on the board. And I mean, some of the stuff comes in here and it is all over the place. I want to see that template, the top page, how much you're looking for, and then you go through the detail of how you got to that number, et cetera, et cetera. The template is great, but please, if you could try to impress upon them, follow the instructions, or what, we throw it out? No, we won't do that. But
Are you paying attention, Jerry? Yeah,
Yeah.
Jerry's on it.
Jerry.
And then turn around, Miss Warren.
And then I've got one other thing. I'm looking at March. This is just me looking at. You've got right now. We've got a budget public hearing, and only a week later, budget approval. That doesn't give us much time to change or, to make changes from the public hearing. So I'm suggesting maybe March the 28th would be the budget public hearing. That would give you 2 weeks.
We'll have to move the advertisement date when we advertise. That
You've already advertised it?
No, at that point in time. So you're suggesting having the public hearing on the 28th?
Yeah.
So if we have that final workshop on the 16th.
Right. See, if
That's a good comment. We should.
So
Yeah,
give
we
us
should
2
do that.
weeks.
Absolutely.
look at that
That's
closely,
very
Jonathan and Jennifer. Is that see what I'm
That
saying?
that is very good. We absolutely should do that. Absolutely.
Now that is also our regular meeting, which it's at so no, it's 6 o'clock,
great.
but that's fine. So
Oh,
that's all right.
It'd be good.
Sean, let me walk through this real quick, and Ms. Warren as well. But
That is
it's
good.
at least 7 days notice, I believe, in between when you advertise and then when you actually hold the public hearing. So if we have the workshop on the 16th, that's the thing. Having the final product that we're going to advertise, it's the timing of when. I'm not picking on the paper. I'm just saying it's the timeline of when we can submit that and when it actually runs that the public receives it. I think it's at least 1 week requirement between advertisement and the public hearing.
Let's let's see if we can do it on the 28th. That makes sense.
Because I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, I guess what you could do for tonight, we can still check on that and come back to you. Ultimately, if you're fine with the rest of it, if you want to approve this calendar, we will go back and we can always submit a revised budget calendar. I just want to make sure we have the advertisement correct.
Well, yeah, I'm also just looking at the March 16th is to be determined if needed.
Correct.
Let's work and make that not
If-
needed.
Right.
Well, if
though in the past we haven't done there's always a handful of workshops that we don't end up fulfilling on the tail end of the whole process. So we should be able to get. We're working with the schools. We should be able to get this done by the 16th and then get advertised so we can do the public hearing on the 28th at our second regular meeting.
All right, we will work towards that. You will get the school board budget if they approve it on the 13th. We want to do the 28th. Let me clarify that.
Yeah, no,
I'm not
That's fine. Yeah.
going against the desire of the board. But we will get that from the school board, assuming that night, March 13th, or the following day, the 14th. You will have to have an update on the 16th. See, I'm just concerned because if we get it to the paper on the 17th, it's not going to go to the public until the 23rd. So that's that timing from when it's advertised to when we hold it, the public hearing on the 28th, that I'm concerned about. We just don't have enough time between advertisement and the public hearing date. So I think that's what we're going to, if we want to, if the school won't adopt their budget by then, if we want to advertise, if they have some preliminary numbers that we feel good about, then we can advertise a budget on that.
Really close. Yeah. We should be real close.
If we're fine with that approach, members of the board, we can do what you're asking. If we're waiting for the school to adopt, I think that timeline's too tight.
Traditionally, we have numbers from the schools early. We should aim to do the 28th.
Okay. Yes, sir.
The assertion that we'll have a couple weeks in between the adoption of the full budget between is that's good for everybody. Gives us a little time to work off the public's reaction.
I believe then, Mr. Chairman and members of the board, Sean, correct me, our advertisement date would move up from the 23rd to the 16th. Because then that would give us a little more than 7 days, but we could not do the 23rd to meet the 28th. So, Mr. Chairman, if you just move to approve modifying the budget calendar to reflect the advertisement will be on March 16th, omit the March 23rd, or excuse me, change the March 23rd to March 28th advertisement. For public hearing, and remove April 4th in its entirety. And then you would just go into your budget approval on
Do we have
April
other
11th.
comments on this? We all understand what we're doing. We're switching the public hearing to the 28th. We'll advertise early. What do y'all want to do? Need to have a motion.
Can we so move it?
Sure you can.
So moved.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Further discussion? Hearing none. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Thank you. All right.
We will recirculate that, Mr. Chairman,
Yes,
with
sir.
the correct.
And you'll modify for the website, right?
Yes, sir.
Thank
Yes, sir.
you. All right. All right. Website update proposals. Mr. Weekly?
So before I hand it over to Mr. Barry, I brought this to you as an informational item to let you know staff was working on this based on some feedback from some board members, department heads. We've heard, at least I'll speak to my tenure as county administrator. And I also believe there's some value that we can get in communicating with the public. Actually, I appreciate the team. I think Alan and Michelle and others, they pulled up the last RFP when we went out for the website we have today to highlight some criteria that we wish to get with the website update. And we feel like we didn't meet those benchmarks. We feel like we have found a provider that can do a lot of improvements, not only for the board, for department heads, but also the general public. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Barry to walk through the information that he and there's other team members collectively with finance and IT. I know Mr. Barry has been directly involved, so I've asked him to present to you tonight.
Jim, I know you've been involved on this. You want to make any preliminary comments? You want to go through the presentation
Let
first?
let him go through the presentation.
Absolutely. Mr. Barry, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So just general background here real quick. We've been looking at this for, I'd say, maybe almost 2 months at this point, maybe a little bit less have we been really directed at it. I have received numerous complaints from many citizens that our website is basically useless in many terms. They can't find what they're looking for. Our forms pages are all over the place because we have a few of them, and some of the information they've been looking for is completely out of date. I'm not blaming anybody for that. Currently, I am the website administrator, but I can't go through each page and figure out what's out of date to update it on my own because I don't know what departments are saying is out of date. So we started looking around. The first thing we saw from a provider was a quote for around 50 grand. That was outrageous, and we were definitely not going to go with that. So we started looking inward, and MuniCode has recently been acquired by Civic Plus, and we turned towards Civic Plus and said, hey, what's the kind of upgrade we could get from y'all? And they looked at it. The original quote, because we have a few things in the packet, the original quote is around $25,000. We get a $7,000 discount. I believe that's the amount just from being a part of MuniCode and going through Civic Plus then and there. But I'm not asking you to basically slap a new paint job on the website. This is a complete overhaul. For what we're getting for that price, it's completely amazing. But let me just go through some of the hard parts that we've had to deal with the current website. The search bar is more or less completely useless. You can search for things. You can search for tax information. It's not going to bring it up. I mean, you can search very specific stuff. You'll be lucky if you get even close to it with our search engine. A lot of the problems I've run into being the web admin is there are a few hard locked parts of the website I cannot touch. If we have to do any kind of editing on those parts of the website, the main page is the biggest example of that. I can't touch them. We have to contact MuniCode support. And right now, actually, we've been trying to get a mega menu included, which at the top of the main page, you'll see it. There's community, business, how do I, and government. Those are mega menus. I've been waiting on them to get back to me for around 2 weeks now. So the support is not exactly where we need it to be for the website at the moment. And I know I was looking at the old RFP as well. An alert system was mentioned then, and it's something that Civic Plus is really big on. We can set up alerts by department and or group. So if we wanted to have an alert system just based on county administration, people could come in, sign up for that. Any update that comes from county administration, they would get either a text or an email. And if we wanted to split that out to, let's just say, community groups, the Quilters Club, for example, if they wanted to use that, people could sign up for updates through that as well. One of the biggest things for me and Miss Tilly, I know we've started using web forms for the website for job applications. She has told me this has been a massive benefit to us because it's so much easier than just coming in and getting the actual form. Our web forms are horribly outdated. There's not much we can do with them, and they don't offer conditionals, which is basically saying if you click this button here, it'll show you certain information based on that. So we could split it up by saying, what job are you applying for, narrow it down by department, and then narrow it down by specific job. Right now, we can't do that. And the online storage for each of these, we can't actually see the name of the person who has applied. It will give us an IP address. So we have to manually go through each and every application to see who actually applied for a job. And it's not exactly the most efficient system. The other thing that was mentioned in the RFP, and Ms. Tilley brought it up to me as well, was having an intranet system. So basically a private employees only area where we could offer just employee only files to employees. Right now, you can sign into the website unless you're an admin or you have any other kind of power to edit parts of the website. There's no purpose for you to log in. It serves absolutely no purpose if you can get on the website, if you are not given the privileges to use it. But the intranet would offer us the ability to basically give out employee information. If there are tax updates, if there are insurance problems, anything like that, we would have an intranet system dedicated for that solely. And let's see. Let's just move into the actual money part of it, because I think this is the big seller. Right now, our bill is split up into three parts. We have the code hosting, which is the $550 that's added on there. That's not changing because we actually like that part. And that is directly done through MuniCode. The 7,720 you'll see on the third line in the second paragraph, that is the combined web hosting and the agenda software for the county. The agenda software is around, I think it's $3,500 just for that. And the big differential you'll see with the 460530, that's taking out the agenda making software because that's integrated into MuniCode system. We don't have to pay for that. So once we drop it, hey, we're saving $3,000 right then and there. And the other thing, let's see, is MuniCode is offering us a GSA contract. So the information that's based in their contract is static. The fees that they have put in that, they can't change it. So if the hours go over, they can't charge us more for it. But the other things, just so y'all are aware, I've included in the packet the actual statement of work. Oh, that's the GSA contract. The Civic Engage document provided by David May. He is our main point of contact with Civic Plus right now. The difference between that and the contract is, I know it's got the actual monetary values in it. It'll go through a little bit more detail of what the timeline is looking like for Civic Plus's implementation of the actual project, and it's just got a little more detail than the contract itself.
Questions for Alan? Jim?
Yeah, I think it's a great proposal. Aside from the money, there's really two things in here that I think will benefit the county. One is that if they eventually take advantage of the features of this service, we'll move to more of a push architecture as far as public notifications. That will not only improve, I think, local governmental communications with the public, it's going to dramatically reduce the amount of staff time that has to be spent fielding inquiries from the public. And the other thing, in looking at this company, their graphics designer is someone who has, from what I've seen, a fairly extensive experience in designing user interfaces for local governments, which has some peculiarities of its own. You have to look at the least common denominator factor when you're trying to present an interface to the public. So I think that that in itself will improve not only efficiency for county employees, but also the general public. So I think it's a really good plan.
All right. Questions for basically anybody?
So, Mr. Jewett, have you gone on their current website and tried to peruse through it for any?
There's no perusing to it. No, it has a clunky interface, and you really can't find anything.
Clunky is a good way to describe it.
Yeah, I've tried to use the search I mean, I knew what I was searching for just to see if it would work, and yeah, you're right, that didn't work. But of course, and then a lot of the stuff I already know where it is, and if I need to find it again, I know exactly where to go. But it shouldn't be that way.
With going with this and implementing, I assume you're going to start promptly. But with departments having to enter in information, will that interfere with Tyler training and all of that going on right now? Shouldn't have any effect.
Wow.
We don't believe so. It's my understanding initially they can just import over what you have and then work off that content. So while it is a revamp, it's also adding things, but I believe we can manage it. We realize that departments will have different needs. They'll have different bandwidth. So at the end of the day, and I believe there's training in here included in this, like 4 sessions or 4 days, 4 half days sessions. So there will be training involved. Administration and IT will act as the backstop for those who are running into challenges or whatever it may be. I've used this during my time in King George. I know Orange County uses this system as well. Uh, One of the questions I've kind of asked you all is individually. I know currently we don't have a social media platform. I have been reluctant just to jump out there with Facebook.
Does anybody want a social media platform?
So
there you
this
go. That's the way we need to
this
say.
to me is a better
Exactly.
this is a better tool to engage the public because they can subscribe to what they want to know. So if it's Parks and Rec news, if it's everything, it's fine. If it's taxes, like when Stephanie and them asked for a deadline, once that's approved, they put that out there. If you have subscribed, and we will have to do a campaign if the board approves this, they get this out to the general public. Please subscribe. Please subscribe. And as long as you have a cell phone, you can get text messages or email, or you can sign up for both. You will get those alerts immediately. Press, general public, whoever. So I've seen it work back when I was managing a utility. I know this isn't a utility, but we got very specific on where the problem was at in this area of the community. So there is a lot of engagement from the historic or archiving factor. It's not looking to replace Laserfish, but there are things it can do, as Alan mentioned, when it comes to your applicant pool and going back through. Sometimes you may have a vacancy and it's been recent. You want to go back through a good applicant pool you have, so there's easier search. But my benefit, there's many, definitely the staff and the efficiencies, as Supervisor George mentioned, but getting that public arena that we don't have, we get that a lot. Why doesn't the county do this? I push a lot of stuff out through tourism. You've probably seen it, like, why is Tracy that putting out? Because I've asked her to, because I haven't want to set up a Madison County Facebook page. So I think this is a good place to engage the public.
Absolutely. Any other questions, comments, thoughts? The recommended action is we take the contract from Civic Plus. What would y'all like to do on this?
Mr. Chairman, I move that we direct the county administrator to execute the contract with Civic Plus for the new website.
Second.
Motion's made and seconded. Further discussion? Hearing none. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign.
I want to personally thank you.
No.
It's going to be impactful for the team. So thank you. You can see he's happy.
Well, thank you for the hard work. All right. Discussion items. Hoover Ridge Outdoor Rec Center PER. Mr. Weekly?
Yes, sir. Mr. Chairman, I believe I distributed to you at least a couple weeks ago an electronic copy. There are hard copies. I should have brought them down tonight. We can do that now if you like, but there's hard copies of the preliminary engineering report. You may recall when the project for the Hoover Ridge Outdoor Recreation Center came before the board, I'd recommended engineering. You move forward. We established some term contracts, and we really used this project as the first term services for this particular engineering firm, WW Associates. Parks and Rec agreed to fund this. So Parks and Rec in the county and some community members as well had some input on this. So the goal was to understand what are we looking to do? What is the project? And we know it's splash pad, an accessible playground. Accessible means all inclusive, as well as some additional court play. Hockey is the only sport that has not been centrally located to Hoover Ridge. Every other sport, primarily except for basketball, but they have to have gym space, is located at Hoover Ridge: football, baseball, softball, and beyond. So that was the idea of creating this outdoor recreational center. The PER that you have is in draft form, so it's the opportunity for the board to provide comment to staff. It's my understanding that Parks and Rec held a workshop last week. They'll have their comments. So based on what you have to say tonight, Parks and Rec will combine those comments and get those back to the engineer. Those are due back by December the 16th, so they can establish the final PER. As far as next steps, I know you all decide that and can talk about that tonight if you'd like. Um, Certainly, we're approaching the budget season, but at least the purpose of tonight is to give feedback on the PER. If you like I'll throw out some examples. If you like the phasing plan or don't like the phasing plan, or if there were some deletions or added options for pricing and different things, we can certainly do that. Those would be good, adequate comments. So, Mr. Chairman, I stand ready for any questions you may have. Mr. Carpenter is here as the manager as well.
We did have a workshop, and Lindsay's here as well. We did have a workshop. What was it? Was it Monday? No,
it's last week.
What was it?
What's today?
Yeah, exactly. We did it last week for several hours. We went through and we kind of picked at it. I'd like to go to Jerry and Lindsay first to kind of go over what we went through at the workshop, and then Mr. Artelli, who's sitting down here, he is an active member of the group. See if he has any comments as well prior to us kind of going into it. Yeah, throwing you right into the wolves, Lindsay. Welcome. What would you like to say about the PER and where we're at this point?
We went through a lot of different off and down the line items for the cost and stuff, and some different things we have questions about. Cost of different, like the lighting cost. I've reached out to a company to get their opinion on this, to give us something to go by. Another lighting company. The pergola, how you pronounce that? Pergola. The pergola price was pretty high, I think, and just some different things like that.
Most of what we were looking for was to make sure that all the lighting considerations were being made. Placement of structures was, kind of what we could all agree on. That if there was any discussion on placement, anything we left off, parking, electricity, any water issues, any of those things that we were thinking about, where it's just usually 2 to 3 of us looking, we needed to get a little bit more feedback from people who had different experience in a lot of these areas. There were some items where we thought costs were really underestimated, but then, after talking with each other, it was kind of like, oh, well, that's kind of where it is now, but other areas where it was like, a lot higher than we would have anticipated. But it's kind of where the construction costs are right about now, just in certain things. So that was mostly to get a lot of feedback from people in different areas.
Chris, you have anything to add? Yeah. Thank you.
I think they summed it up very well. I would reiterate that between all the informal discussions and the formal workshop meetings, I think we have a much better proposal than we had when we started. Just some minor tweaks and major tweaks, and I think we've gotten to a better place with all the input that we have. From my experience, these are our budgeting numbers. This is like the first pass. So some of them are going to be high and some are going to be low, and a couple might accidentally hit the target. But of course, everything will get put out to bid. Those numbers will get coming more into focus as we move forward. But it gives us a starting point to know if we're talking about a $1 million project, a $5 million project, or where. So I really impressed with the work that Gary and Lindsay and others have put into it up to this point. Glad to be part of it.
Yes, sir. The other night we kind of hit a handful of things. I think they're worth kind of stating before we get all into it. Lindsay pointed out she wanted to move one of the pavilions a little bit closer to the entrance, I guess the best way to say it. The other one that we went through and we're looking at the asphalt cost. I certainly think that we've got to start with gravel, and compare prices on gravel versus asphalt, and with the and first stage being all infrastructure, the parking area, and then the roads leading to it, where everything else is gravel. I think we've got to stick with it just to be cost conscious. Um, we went through and we all realized at this point that the caps aren't going to be able to work with us for the first 2 years on this. We thought that they would have a grant avenue to go down, so we need to pull their names out of this proposal at this point. Hopefully, that's been conveyed back to W&W Associates. I was glad to see that the dog park was optional at the end. Madison County is one big dog park. The other one was the bathrooms. It was cited at 200K, and that's bathrooms and basically family restrooms and changing rooms, and then concessions that go with it. At 200K, we think we can build it for substantially less, just stick built. What else? Yeah, we just need to get some cost and some consistency on some of these asphalt costs and see where we can save some money on it. Cardi, what else do you have on
So
this?
I was going to, Chris, would you mind grabbing the mic and relaying? You had a good point the other night about how long it would take with DEQ and whatnot to even get the, to start moving dirt. With given that the caps say they can't help us for 2 years, right? And your point was, well, it'll take us probably 18 months to get through the permitting process and stuff. Is that
Correct. From the meeting that we had with Herb White, the civil engineer,
yeah?
Permitting, engineering first, and then the permitting, and the approvals is probably a 12 to 18 month process. So nothing can happen until that is done. Even if somebody came along and said, I want to fund the playground for you, can we start now? No, we can't start for 12 to 18 months. My suggestion or my query was, can we budget for the engineering portion now, which is a small bit of the whole project, and get that clock ticking, get the engineering started? There, in 12 months from now, we could be in a position where somebody wants to fund one of the components. We could say, yeah, we could start that now. We're just about to get the DEQ approval. That's the big one. So that was my suggestion. Can we budget for the engineering and permitting part as sort of a sub-phase of phase one, and get that started while we work on fine-tuning the major plan and fundraising and so on and so forth?
The engineering would cost right at and permitting right at $210,000. Isn't that what we added it up to the other
The
night?
budget right now is 210 for engineering and permitting.
Yeah.
So that would throw the whole process. If we could continue to talk to the caps, that might throw us right back into their cycle. Then
It's possible.
yeah,
We don't know where they're going to be
correct. They might
2 years from now, but funding for outdoor rinks was pulled, so we're out of this cycle anyway.
You are you're fundraising currently, and you're exploring other avenues as everybody involved trying to raise revenue for this project.
That's exactly right. I mean, we're trying to fund for the whole thing. I can secure some funds for hockey because of my contacts, but we're trying to fund for the whole thing, each component.
And they are fundraising, and I say they, I mean Parks and Rec and hockey and people involved in basketball. Like everybody is fundraising, but they're really raising like real money, not a couple thousand here and there. I mean, you're talking big dollar figures, and that's just fantastic. What comments does the board have on this?
Yeah, I've been through this, I guess, 3 times now. So, as an accountant, I must say my vision skills are lacking I'm not a visionary. I'm an accountant. So I appreciate what Lindsay and Jerry and everybody, all their comments about where they'd like stuff placed and why, which made perfect sense to me when after they told me. And it's beautiful. I think this is a good preliminary engineering report is what it is, and I think it's a great document to go out to bid with as it sits right now. Whenever we're ready to do that.
And to get the final instead of just the draft that
Yeah.
they've gotten a copy to at this point. And some of these items you'll convey back to W&W Associates, and they'll add to their final draft of what we've already contracted them with.
Yes, sir. We will capture, Lindsay and I have already been in contact. So we will capture Parks and Rec comments. We will capture the board comments and combine and send those over. I just want to make sure that what I understand, I capture your comments. We want to ask them to provide an option of the gravel area as you laid out. I know Lindsay will already have the comment. We'll capture that on the pavilion layout. So is there anything else from the board or as engineer or comments of the PER? Because the request, and I appreciate Mr. Artelli's involvement, that request, that's an action or directive you have to give me at a later time. If you want to do that during budget or what have you. But certainly that document or get to engineering wouldn't be lost if you expended those funds sometime between now and the next budget cycle, that those drawings you would receive from that is part of the drawings and could be used for the narrative to go out for bids. So it wouldn't be wasted money on a document. It's just, do you want to put this ultimately in your capital improvement plan? So those are kind of your next steps. But for the purpose tonight, I heard gravel as an option. We'll definitely capture the pavilion and any other items.
You'll have a list from the workshop that we went through the other night that you can provide Mr. Weekly. I tend to agree with Cardi. The playgrounds that I went to school with are certainly not what they're building now. I mean, it is crazy how far they've kind of come. The surface alone for just the playground is like $250,000 just the surface, and that's just incredible to me. But it is something that there is demand for, and we'll see if we can figure out ways to fund. Anybody else got any comments on this?
Question, John. With these kinds of projects, are there naming opportunities with regard to soliciting funds?
Ma'am?
The biggest thing is we kind of need first approval from county to solicit funds and to get some. So most of right now is being able to submit that document to our donors and into projects or things that about, if we look at the bill, that's kind of where we are with this. We do have a lot of people who are interested, organizations that are interested in opportunities. I'm just going to say when we're going to the playground, they were not updated, so I'll send you the review of that. This is all, so you know, that's the way to go. But yes, there will be many opportunities for the structures.
I hate to throw it in there. Chris Artelli's daughter-in-law has done very well fundraising with like the bricks that have names on them and buy that type. But so they're exploring the Parks and Rec and everybody involved, and there's quite the group. They're exploring all avenues, trying to raise some money. The issue that I think everybody is super aware of, the engineering for sure, and then a lot of the site work is kind of it's so essential to everything, but in the grand scheme, the people that want to fund, that are wanting to donate, they want to donate the playground. They want to do the water park or the hockey park. Nobody wants to pay to donate money to push dirt around. And that's where I think push dirt around and then do the piping and all the different essentials. And that's where we've got to start trying to figure out what we can and cannot do. And I think that kind of does start going into the budget process, especially with some of these really, really big dollar items that go along. Chris's comment about maybe getting ahead and doing some of the engineering and architecture work. and start trying to get some of the permits in place. I thought that comment kind of resonated with me. That's a fixed cost that it is sort of affordable. And just kind of goes with them. Yeah.
Yeah, well, I agree. So are we going to submit so if you would send the changes, so Charlotte, you haven't seen them,
No.
and Dustin and Jim, yeah, send those things to them, the three of them too. So see if
Send
you
them to
all,
all of us.
yeah,
Yeah.
um, see if y'all that triggers anything else that you might, or see if you agree or disagree with them. They're really minor stuff for the most part, I think. Um, so we submit the changes to WW Associate by the 16th, right? That's what they were asking for. Or
That was in our
that's an absolute.
kickoff schedule. So I mean, you can have them a little late. They're working on our time.
Yeah.
But anytime you go through a PER, they give you a project schedule. We have one for the renovations of the former squad building, for example. So they tell you kickoff meeting, first review, second review. They go through that. So December 16th was in that schedule that we
Yeah.
signed. But if it's later, that's fine. We can communicate that. It's better off to have all your comments
Yeah.
and let that shake out on the timeline versus just saying the 16th, and then
Okay, so
we don't capture
forgive
everything.
me for asking that. So we've got a preliminary engineering report that needs some changes to it. So when the changes come back, now it is just an engineering report, or is it
They
still
call
a preliminary engineering report?
it's still a PER. It goes
Okay.
from draft form to final draft form.
So it'll go final draft of the PER. Then the board needs to make a motion to approve that final one.
It's
I would,
if you would
approve
like to, it's not necessary.
Yeah.
Your approval would be my opinion.
Yeah.
Your approval would be is they've made all the changes that you have asked for.
Well, I'm trying to get to the place where Jerry and Lindsay can start distributing this thing, right?
Honestly, if that's the goal, because this went the
Okay.
draft form for the general public, it's in our packet, so it is online. Those could see it. So the final, once you review it and you had no more comments, certainly they can distribute that. That's because it's a public document.
Sure. Okay.
You're looking for,
And they're looking for
so I just
permission.
want to clarify. You're looking for permission to start to get the permitting process. That's a different question. The question on that is you direct staff when you would like to do that. If it's the budget time, I can go ahead and get a proposal now from the firms that we have under contract to say, give me a proposal. It should match these numbers, but give me a proposal on the engineering, which is the site work.
Let's get a final back.
Mhm.
Then we can go down the path of getting some formal documents and trying to figure out how we pay $210,000.
Yes, sir.
And that's whether we do it now or during the budget cycle or whatever. But let's get a final back, make sure it is where we're at, and then we can kind of work our way down through this process.
In the meantime, I don't see any reason why Jerry and Lindsay shouldn't use this document to show potential contributors or the citizens in general what's in play, right? Or
yeah, the issue I think that they're having still to this point, and we're not going to get there tonight. It's like all things in government, it takes a while to get there. The county's going to have some kind of skin in the game here. They can fundraise and fund 90% of it by fundraising. We are going to have to eventually put some money into this. And it's going to be more than the contribution that they've put in, the $25K. We just have to kind of figure out if we can afford it. Kids need things here in Madison. This is not an essential service, so we do need to figure out the affordability of it and what we can actually obligate towards this project. And then what, through fundraising, can go to it to make it complete. Well, let's get a final back with it honed, and then we can kind of keep on marching along on this. It's never going to be as fast as Lindsay wants it to be, and Jerry wants it to be, and heck, I think probably the majority of kids in Madison County. But we'll get a better product if we take it slow and just kind of get to where we need to go and handle it responsibly. So get the critiques back by the 16th, and then let's see where we go from there. But yeah, I would think that you should start using the document. So. All right. Anything else on this? All right. Mr. Weekly, tell us about, and thank you all for working on it. Chris, thank you very, very much. Upcoming committee vacancies.
Yes, sir. I believe Mr. Barry has provided you all a handout of the latest updated committee list. Not all are appointed by the Board of Supervisors. For example, BZA has some appointments coming up, but that's handled by the Circuit Court. You have some, for example, with Parks and Rec Authority. There's 4 positions for Planning Commission that expire at the end of January. So I wanted to bring this to you since it's December, because if you are looking for us to advertise, it gives us adequate time to get that out there, advertise. Hopefully folks see it over the holidays and gym up support of applications for these committees. So the purpose for tonight is if there's any specific vacancies, and that's the ones, those are the ones that are closest to us. If you wish us to advertise, please direct us to do so, and we will do that accordingly. Some of the others you covered during your organizational meeting, and certainly you will see this document again as part of your packet for the organizational meeting coming up in January. So, Mr. Chairman, if whatever direction the board like to take on seeking applications for upcoming vacancies.
All right. We know that we have multiple for the Planning Commission that are coming up. I think we should go ahead and advertise for those. What other ones jump out at us? It looks like we've got some that are up on PRA. We probably should advertise for PRA. I think we should reach out to anybody that's expiring on this CPMT and all of those committees and see if they will read. Dustin, that's you. Yeah, we need to reach back out to them, make sure everybody's good to continue serving on that. I assume we're still advertising for the CSB. Is that right? Have we gotten any applicants for it?
We only received one. We went out to advertisement like 2 or 3 times. We have not re-advertised since then. Not getting the return on the investment, if you will. I did speak to Mr. LaGraff today. I agree with the conversation we had, but certainly I defer to Supervisor Dawson. Ms. Ward is a rep on there, but he feels.
I don't think we advertise it. I mean, we're not getting any. No, and we have 2 great representatives there. Madison's not going to be left out with Jim LaGraff at the helm. So.
And that's exactly what Jim said today, is that, he feels we are very well represented. I know they moved the meetings till 4 p.m., but we have Ms. Ward, we have Mr. Bennett as our citizen rep. So we are very appreciative of that.
Absolutely. Any other ones jump out at anybody that we need to hit?
Like the Building Code Board of Appeals, there's 91 days left before most of them come up. I mean, how long is it? Can you wait till February or so to start?
Well, BZA, is that the one
No,
specifically?
Building Code Board of Appeals, not the BZA.
Okay. Yes, sir. So the question is, can we wait on that? Yes, sir. I think that would be appropriate. Like we can start pinging them sometime, maybe mid-January, late January. Absolutely. You have one of those members in your audience tonight.
Mm-hmm. That's right. That's before he left.
Chris, you're going to stay on there, right?
Hey, Chris.
You're going to stay on the Building Code of Appeals. See, there you go. Crush that one. Don't advertise for one left. I think the Parks and Rec. I think it's Parks and Rec and Planning Commission. Let's advertise and then see where we go from there.
Yeah.
Okay.
Does that work for everybody?
Yes, sir.
On. Yeah. The only other one, y'all want to reach, you want to instruct Tracy to reach out to the tourism committee, and see if they're willing to serve again.
Yes,
The
sir.
members, I mean, you got a handful of them. You have 4 of them. Maybe we can see if they'd like to.
Yes, sir. We'll do that. And at the same time, we'll verify some of these assignments. They have limits, like term limits. So
Yeah.
we'll verify that someone's not in their second, third term. That if there are no preclusions or prohibitions, we can keep them there if they're willing to do so.
All right. Anything else on that? Mr. Weekly, December 27th meeting.
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman. As you know, the Board of Supervisors meets the second and fourth Tuesdays of every month. I do realize December 27th is a couple of days after Christmas, but I wanted to put this on here for discussion. If the board would like to keep that meeting, cancel the meeting, keep it pending any decision. If you elect to give that to the board chairman. So it's mainly discussion. It's not really an advocating.
We've been having closed sessions on a handful of different topics. We know we have we're going to closing tomorrow on the rescue squad, and then also with the CSB. We've got a bunch of stuff. Don't anticipate having to have the meeting on the 27th. I think we leave it on the calendar. And if we get to like a week out, if y'all don't mind, let me cancel the thing. I think that allows us to continue having the meeting if we need to have it.
Yes.
Chances are we will not. But
And if Jonathan and
Absolutely.
Alan want to take off time, that's a good time.
absolutely not.
Too.
No, you do not get off. What are you
I'm
doing,
working at the
Mr.
pleasure of the board. so.
No, if y'all don't mind, I mean, by all means, I mean, Christmas and all family, that's super important. Let's hope that hopefully we don't have to meet and everybody has a great Christmas. But leaving it on there so we can fulfill the legal obligations if we need it. If that works for everybody.
Yes, sir.
Good down here? Yeah. Does that work for you, gentlemen?
Yes, sir.
All right, thank y'all. Terrific. Jim, how was your commute in today?
You mean through the traffic light?
Yeah, the traffic light, exactly. Still going great?
Same old.
We met with the VDOT committee this past week. For the life of me, I can't understand something that's so simple, is so complicated.
Yeah.
And
It's a major thing with them. It's just unbelievable.
I understand traffic models and statistics, but I don't understand how increasing that delay by 1 second would disrupt the entire 29 corridor, which was stated to us.
Is that right?
Yes, no,
That's
serious.
what they claim.
The engineer, the light engineer, was going to check out the timing. He did verify that it's just a 1 second delay. He's going to get back to us on some short-term solutions, and hopefully within the next week or two, although we know how fast that moves. One of the things that he said we may have to consider is if we want to increase that delay by 1 second, so it would go from 1 to 2 second delay from the red to green switch on the perpendicular routes, we may have to take a second off of the allowed time that the side roads or the green light stays for them so that they can enter the highway. That's now. Mr. Weekly and I told them. The engineer said, "Well, if I can do it, I'll do it." I said, "No, let us know what you can do because it's got to come back to this board to make that decision." So we're awaiting that. The other issue is that they're going to commission some big study that's going to reevaluate the traffic light timing on the 29 corridor, and that's. Mr. Weekly, how long did they anticipate that taking?
It could take 12 months from the time that they hire to complete the study, to review it and bring it back to us. And they say that they do this about every 4 to 5 years.
They do a study of the corridor.
Of the 29, the 5, I think I have that right. The 5 traffic lights we have, or the lights that we have on 29, they look at those every 4 to 5 years. And that's what this commission study would do.
I've always found that the VDOT people are always very trustworthy and are honest. But I do not believe that there is any kind of plan on the stoplights on 29. Like I'm talking the whole thing. Like I don't think there's a plan. What do we need to do here? Do we need to go up the ladder or something?
If you can give 4 or 5 seconds on the other lights on 29, why can't you give
How-
2 or 3 to that?
How long do how long is one at Fairgrounds?
I think it's around 3
I
seconds.
think it is
It's a
3
good
also.
delay.
Yeah.
So a mile and a half apart, that 1 second thing, or now we're talking 2 because we're going to 3 seconds. That would devastate commuting on the 29 corridor.
Oh, the
Sarah,
entire 29,
I-
all throughout Virginia.
Sheriff.
Oh, Sheriff, yes, sir.
Usually 3 seconds, but the availability during school time. I'm going to go on the computer to do this. Also, be an alternate issue at the high school. During school events, they up it extra 3 seconds. But once you do one line, to keep consistency, it has to be everybody staying on.
Did y'all meet with like the top tier of VDOT, or I mean, do we need? We got to find somebody else that can increase this by 2 seconds to make one intersection safe. I do not. I agree with you. I don't see how this is so complicated.
Well, that's a good question. Who do we escalate this to?
So I can see who's above. We met with the resident engineer, I believe the assistant. There were a couple traffic engineers specific to this, one of which they had their database of, they could go through and look at the traffic lights. I know it's a 1 second interval, and then it moves up to 2 seconds at Oak Park and then 3 at Fairground. I don't know about the other lights beyond it, but I can check on that. That's the desire of the board. I will say Ms. Shepherd instructed them, instead of waiting on the study, let's see what we can do now and still bring the study back. So that was a meeting I think we held on Thursday or Friday. So we're waiting on a response.
And one other thing that the other engineer mentioned that I thought was interesting, and that we impressed upon them that they should pursue it. They are complaining that there is a problem at the McDonald's at stoplight with regard to the disruption of traffic flow. Madison evidently controls the entire 29 corridor.
I've always thought that.
But and we impressed upon them that if there's a problem now, there could potentially be future development there that would cause access problems off the side roads. Would they please start looking at that now? Because it'd probably take 10 or 15 years for them to do it. I shouldn't say that. Yes,
Sheriff.
Sheriff.
On the issue of Washington Street 29, because there's a big white line, and when you go over that white line, that triggers something, the light is not trying to shoot you. So that's why you come to the white line, stay a foot on this side of the white line, and the white line goes right. You can do that completely.
Thank you, Sheriff.
We're all learning things tonight.
Finding that number.
Yeah, let's. I don't think we're talking to the right people. I think we need to find somebody somebody else. I don't care who it is. This is not rock. There is no plan on 29. Madison does not hinge the whole 29 corridor from here to the North Carolina line. This is foolishness. See if y'all mind if we can find somebody that has some sense and can help us in an expedited way for 2 seconds.
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman.
Yes.
What am I missing here?
We're just going to keep spinning the wheels.
Yeah, this is a loser of and I appreciate everybody putting in time, and I'm sure hopefully you got some amusement out of it. But I mean, this is not.
I believe they're due in January for their quarterly appearance as well. So
Let's see if we can find somebody.
Okay.
That's ridiculous.
Got
anything else?
That's enough for
Yeah.
The other thing, Mr. Chairman, they mentioned at that meeting is that they would like to set up. They're still working this out, but if there are any initiatives, whether they're county or in this case, even if the town like to do safety projects or whatever, it still has to be sanctioned or approved by the Board of Supervisors, that they're willing to work with the counties in advance. That helps you on your scoring for your application. So we welcome that. That was something else we learned at the meeting.
All right. Anything else on VDOT? Moving on. Information and correspondence. Broadband update. Mr. Weekly?
Yes, sir. I asked Mr. Barry if you can go to our website. I'll talk through this. Um, some of you have asked for a broadband update. There was a VATI quarterly meeting held on December the 1st. Not a lot to report other than the work that you see on 29, and I'll get to that in a minute, is not Firefly. I will get to that in a minute, who that is. Firefly is still in the make ready work. So what we'll do, we'll walk through the exercise, whether it's the board or the general public, to see how you get the latest and greatest news. Eventually, because Alan talked about the menu, we could not put this as anywhere other than where it currently exists because we're waiting on the menu request to add that beside community. So there may be another spot when we get the new website. We can certainly go through this exercise again, but for the general public right now, you go under our community tab. Alan has it highlighted there as broadband. If you click on broadband, it will bring up the, we'll have to update some of that committee, but it does talk about the VATI grant we applied for. To the left is a important tab, broadband project tracking. And this is everything specifically related that has been approved. There's no back and forth like that one area of Wolftown. This is what has been approved and the status that they are in. Click on broadband project tracking, please. That brings you to, and you can see the cumbersome task here going through our website. He'll bring up the link there for broadband tracking from that page. Firefly has their own page. This links you to Madison's project on the Firefly page. There are 13 counties in total, or 13 counties in towns in total. This is the Madison project. So one, you should check your availability and pre-register if you haven't done that as a citizen. Continue to scroll, Alan. This is known as the Firefly Rise project. So this is what was applied and awarded in the FY, I think 22 VATI grant that was awarded last December. And then of course we have the FY 23 VATI grant that we applied. We hope to hear something this month. Continue to scroll, please. So this, when go, you can put that back to the, yes, thank you, right there. So Firefly, they will be leasing back the infrastructure from the utility owner. In Madison County, they are primarily working with REC. There are customers in other localities that they deal with Dominion. So the reason why you see Standardsville and Pratt's Wolftown, that is where our substations or the identified substations exist. So fiber has to be closely connected in that area. So if you want to know where you're at, it's a 6-stage process. So if you're going left to right, looking at right below REC Standardsville, it's the same thing under Pratt's Wolftown. You'll see field data collection is where it all begins. Then it's make ready engineering, make ready construction. And make ready construction can mean they're getting the substation ready. They're getting the actual infrastructure ready. It's not the drop to your home. So you move from make ready construction to fiber construction. And then there's main line splicing. So then you're able to get off the main trunk lines onto additional arteries, if you will, that will serve homes off the main line. And then the 5th step is service drop construction. That's when they actually come off the pole to your home. And then it's putting it in service. So those are the 6 steps where you can currently see where we're at. And I'll have Alan click the map here in a minute. For the Standardsville area, we're in the make ready construction phase. For the Pratt's Wolftown, we're at the make ready engineering phase. You can click that map, please. Click view. I don't know if it'll share. That just shows you that area to be served. So to the right is a sample letter. So if you are in those areas, you will receive a letter from REC, but also I've asked Firefly to update their website because we want to know when these letters are going out to the general public, so aware that they're going out. And then if anyone calls in, what's this letter I received in the mail? We can also be aware and talk through that. But when they are out in your area, you will get notice of work. So the estimated completion time from Firefly is August 2025 to have complete to have completed the project. So I do not have any specific information of will Rochelle go first? Will it be portions of Brightwood or anywhere along Wolftown? I have been told that they can do work simultaneously, so don't just feel like it'll start in Wolftown and then you have to wait before they begin in Rochelle or other areas of the county. So constantly go to that webpage. We have a quarterly meeting. I think it'll be in March. So I will bring you updates. If I have something sooner, I will. If not, I will say just go to the webpage for your updates. But I will certainly bring back the information from our quarterly meetings as information is available.
Are people on the front porch of the Evelyn store checking on this?
No, they haven't started doing that right now. They're a lot of searching for dogs right now.
Oh, yes, hunting. Yeah, that's here. All right. Point them in this direction. Any other comments on this? Thanks for the update.
I'd like to mention one thing that, as far as information and correspondence, that's not on here. I kind of teased a little bit with the work that's being done on 29. I've received 3 complaints at this point. The first one initiated me to find out who is working on 29. It is a Facebook contractor that's installing that utility on 29. I got that via VDOT because anyone working on 29 has to get a permit to do so. I will say the contractor has been responsive immediately. I'm a little irritated when they're parking equipment that they're not getting permission in advance. Now, certainly they can do that in the VDOT right of way, but Prince Michelle's lower parking lot is not a VDOT right of way. But they have been responsive. I've just, have urged them that it's unacceptable to be parking places or storing things or leaving trash.
Jonathan, I'm not sure that's not a right of way because there used to be a VDOT little picnic area there.
At their lower parking lot?
The lower parking lot. I'm not sure that's not VDOT.
We can look at that. I believe it's generally.
It was some kind of a little wayside.
We'll look at that. I think they go no further in some major highways of 50 feet. We'll look at that.
The lower parking lot of Prince Michelle, yeah.
But are you getting complaints from other property owners?
There's property owners. Someone's mailbox was destroyed. They've corrected that. There was a driveway where dirt and matting was covered up, so they fixed that. So I will say they have been responsive when we've reached out. So if you are getting constituent complaints, it's the best way, and I'm reading that to them, and then I'm following up with the complaint to make sure it's been satisfied to their standard. Bless you.
All right. Direct complaints to Mr. Weekly, and he'll see if he can get them rectified. Any other information and correspondence? All right. Public comment. Public comment. Anybody online, Livingston? Any public comment? All right. We do have a closed session this evening. Thank you for everybody coming.